Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Let's be real, breakups are hard. Whether you're the one who ended things or the one who got left behind, there's no easy way to navigate the emotional roller coaster that follows. The sleepless nights, the endless questions, the what-ifs that keep playing in your mind on repeat. It's exhausting and it's painful. But here's the thing, sometimes, after the dust settles, your ex starts to see things differently. Maybe they realize they took you for granted. Maybe they miss the little things you did for them, the way you made them laugh, the way you always knew how to comfort them, or the way you made them feel like they were the most important person in the world. Or maybe, just maybe, they start to understand that losing you was the biggest mistake of their life. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but what if they never realize it? What if they just move on and forget about me? Trust me, I've been there. I've spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was ever enough, if they ever truly loved me, or if they'll ever regret letting me go. It's a heavy feeling, and it's one that can make you question everything about yourself and the relationship. But here's the truth. When someone loses something real, something meaningful, it's impossible for them not to feel it. And sometimes that realization hits them like a ton of bricks. In this video, we're going to talk about 3 common mistakes your ex might realize they made after the breakup. These are the moments that make them stop and think, wow, I really messed up. And while this isn't about getting revenge or waiting around for them to come back, it's about understanding your worth and recognizing that sometimes people don't know what they have until it's gone. Think about it. When you're in a relationship, it's easy to get comfortable. It's easy to take things for granted, to assume that the other person will always be there, no matter what. But when that person is gone, that's when the reality sets in. That's when they start to notice the little things they miss. The way you always knew how to make them smile, the way you supported them through their toughest moments, or the way you made them feel like they were home. And that's when the regret starts to creep in. But here's the thing. This video isn't about gloating or waiting for your ex to come crawling back. It's about understanding your own value and realizing that sometimes people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone. It's about recognizing that you deserve someone who sees your worth every single day, not just when they realize they've lost you. So, whether you're fresh out of a breakup or still healing from one that happened months or even years ago, this video is for you. Grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in. And hey, if this resonates with you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment, letting me know your thoughts. Let's get started. Let's talk about the first mistake your ex might realize they made, taking you for granted. This is one of the most common reasons people regret breakups. When you're in a relationship, it's easy to fall into a routine. You get comfortable, and sometimes that comfort turns into complacency. Your ex might have stopped appreciating the little things you did, the way you always remembered their favorite coffee order, how you listened to them vent after a long day, or the way you made them feel safe and loved. These small acts of kindness and love are the glue that holds relationships together, but when they're overlooked, the foundation starts to crack. Think about it. When was the last time they thanked you for something you did? When was the last time they truly showed you how much they valued you? If you're struggling to remember, chances are they took you for granted. And here's the thing. When you're gone, that's when they start to notice the void you left behind. Suddenly, they're the ones making their own coffee, dealing with their problems alone, and realizing how much you brought to their life. It's in those moments of absence that they begin to understand the weight of what they've lost. Let me share a story. I once had a friend, let's call her Sarah, who was in a relationship for 5 years. She did everything for her partner. She cooked, cleaned, supported him through job losses, and even helped him plan his career goals. She was his rock, his safe space, and his biggest cheerleader. But over time, he stopped appreciating her. He stopped saying thank you, stopped showing affection, and started acting like her efforts were expected, not earned. It was as if he believed she would always be there, no matter what. When Sarah finally had enough and ended things, he was shocked. And guess what? A few months later, he reached out, apologizing and admitting he took her for granted. But by then, Sarah had moved on. She had realized her worth and found someone who appreciated her every single day. This story reminds me of a powerful Stoic quote by Epictetus. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. In relationships, this quote applies perfectly. When someone takes you for granted, it's because they've become so accustomed to having you in their life that they stop valuing you. They start to believe that your love and efforts are infinite, that they don't need to nurture or cherish what they have. But the truth is, love is not a given, it's a gift. And when they lose that gift, they realize how much they truly wanted it all along. Another mistake related to taking you for granted is failing to reciprocate effort. Relationships are a two-way street, but sometimes one person ends up doing all the heavy lifting. Maybe you were always the one initiating date, planning surprises, or making sacrifices to keep the relationship alive. Meanwhile, your ex sat back and enjoyed the benefits without putting in the same level of effort. This imbalance creates resentment and exhaustion, and it's often the reason relationships fall apart. When your ex looks back, they might realize how unfair it was to expect you to carry the relationship on your own. They might see how much you gave and how little they gave in return. And that realization can be a hard pill to swallow. Here's another Stoic principle that ties into this. What you fail to appreciate, you will eventually lose. This is a universal truth, not just in relationships, but in life. When we stop appreciating the people and things that matter most, we risk losing them. Your ex might have thought they could coast through the relationship without putting in the effort, but now that you're gone, they're starting to see the consequences of their actions. They're realizing that love requires constant nurturing, and that taking someone for granted is a surefire way to lose them. Another aspect of taking someone for granted is failing to communicate appreciation. Words matter. Saying thank you, I love you, or I appreciate you might seem small, but they have a huge impact. When your ex stops expressing gratitude or affection, it creates a sense of emotional distance. You start to feel invisible, like your efforts don't matter. And over time, that emotional distance grows into a chasm. When your ex reflects on the relationship, they might realize how their lack of communication contributed to the breakup. They might wish they had spoken up more, expressed their feelings, and made you feel valued. But by then, it's too late. Marcus Aurelius once said, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Imagine if your ex had approached your relationship with this mindset. Imagine if they had woken up every day grateful for you, for the love you shared and the life you were building together. But instead, they took it all for granted. They assumed you would always be there, and they failed to cherish the privilege of having you in their life. Now that you're gone, they're starting to see how much they took for granted. One final mistake related to taking you for granted is failing to grow with you. Relationships thrive when both partners are committed to personal and mutual growth. But when one person becomes complacent, it creates stagnation. Maybe your ex stopped putting effort into their own growth, or maybe they stopped supporting yours. They might have expected you to stay the same, to always be there for them without asking for anything in return. But people change and relationships evolve. When your ex looks back, they might realize how much they held you back or failed to grow alongside you. They might see how their complacency contributed to the end of the relationship. Here's the lesson. When someone takes you for granted, it's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their inability to see it. And when they finally do, it's often too late. So if your ex starts to realize they took you for granted, remember this. You deserve someone who appreciates you every single day, not just when you're gone. You deserve someone who sees your value, cherishes your efforts, and grows with you. And if your ex couldn't do that, then they weren't the right person for you. All right, let's move on to the second mistake your ex might regret: letting their ego get in the way. Ego is one of the most destructive forces in relationships. It's the voice that tells someone they're always right, that they don't need to apologize, and that their pride is more important than their connection with you. Ego can turn small disagreements into massive blowouts, and it can make someone so focused on winning arguments that they forget what's really at stake: the relationship itself. Think about your breakup. Was there a moment when your ex refused to back down, even when it was clear they were in the wrong? Did they prioritize their pride over your feelings? If so, that's their ego talking. And here's the thing: ego doesn't just damage relationships, it destroys them. It creates walls where there should be bridges, and it turns love into a battlefield. But here's the kicker. After the breakup, when the dust settles and they're alone with their thoughts, that's when their ego starts to crack. They start to realize that being right doesn't mean much when you're lonely. Let me tell you about a friend of mine. Let's call him Jake. Jake was in a relationship with someone who had a huge ego. Every argument turned into a power struggle. Every disagreement was a battle of wills. It didn't matter how small the issue was, whether it was about where to go for dinner or how to spend the holidays, it always became a fight. Jake's ex couldn't stand the idea of being wrong, even when it was obvious they were. They would twist the facts, deflect blame, and even gaslight Jake to avoid admitting fault. Over time, it became exhausting. Jake felt like he was constantly walking on eggshells, afraid to bring up anything that might trigger another argument. When Jake finally had enough and ended things, his ex acted like it didn't bother them. They put on a brave face, pretending they were better off without him. But guess what? A few weeks later, they started texting Jake, apologizing and admitting they let their ego ruin something good. But by then, Jake had already started to heal. He had realized that love shouldn't feel like a war, and he wasn't willing to go back to that toxic dynamic. Another mistake related to ego is the inability to apologize. Apologies are one of the most important tools in a relationship. They show humility, accountability, and a willingness to repair the damage that's been done. But when someone's ego gets in the way, they see apologizing as a sign of weakness. They'd rather let the relationship crumble than admit they made a mistake. If your ex struggled to apologize, even when it was clear they were in the wrong, that's a sign their ego was running the show. And now that you're gone, they might be starting to see how much damage that caused. They might realize that a simple "I'm sorry" could have saved the relationship, but their pride got in the way. Another aspect of ego in relationships is the need to always be in control. Some people struggle to let go of control because it makes them feel vulnerable. They want to dictate how things should be, how you should act, and how the relationship should progress. But love isn't about control, it's about partnership. It's about two people coming together as equals, with mutual respect and understanding. When your ex let their ego take over, they might have tried to control the relationship, whether it was through manipulation, ultimatums, or simply refusing to compromise. But now that you're gone, they're starting to see how their need for control pushed you away. They're realizing that love can't thrive in a power struggle. One final mistake related to ego is the inability to grow. Relationships require growth, both individually and as a couple. But when someone's ego gets in the way, they resist change. They might refuse to acknowledge their flaws, or they might dismiss feedback as criticism. They become so focused on protecting their pride that they miss out on opportunities to grow and improve. If your ex let their ego prevent them from growing, they might now be realizing how much that held the relationship back. They might see how their unwillingness to change contributed to the breakup, and that realization can be a hard pill to swallow. Here's the truth. Ego has no place in love. Love requires vulnerability, humility, and the willingness to admit when you're wrong. It's about putting the relationship above your pride and choosing connection over control. If your ex let their ego drive them away from you, that's on them. And when they realize it, it's a hard pill to swallow. But by then, you'll already be on your way to something better, something healthier, more balanced, and free from the toxicity of ego. Finally, let's talk about the third mistake your ex might regret: not fighting for you. Love isn't just about the good times, it's about sticking together through the hard times. It's about choosing each other, even when things get tough. It's about showing up, even when it's easier to walk away. But sometimes people give up too easily. They let fear, doubt, or convenience dictate their actions, and they walk away when things get complicated instead of putting in the effort to make it work. And that's a mistake they'll likely regret when they realize what they've lost. Think about your relationship. Did your ex fight for you when things got hard? Did they stand by your side during the challenges, or did they bail at the first sign of trouble? If it's the latter, that's something they might deeply regret later. Because here's the thing. When they see you moving on, thriving, and living your best life, they'll realize what they lost. They'll realize that you were worth fighting for, and they didn't. And that realization can be a bitter pill to swallow. I received a message from a viewer. Let's call her Emily. Emily was in a relationship with someone who seemed perfect at first. They had a strong connection, shared similar goals, and genuinely cared for each other. But as time went on, things got tough. Life threw challenges their way: financial stress, family issues, and personal struggles. Instead of facing those challenges together, Emily's ex started pulling away. He became distant, emotionally unavailable, and eventually he ended the relationship, saying he wasn't ready for something serious. Emily was heartbroken, but she didn't let that breakup define her. She focused on herself, worked on her goals, and slowly started to rebuild her life. A year later, her ex came back, apologizing and saying he had made a mistake. He admitted that he wasn't ready to fight for the relationship when things got hard, but now he realized how much he had lost. But by then, Emily had moved on. She had found someone who was willing to fight for her from day one, someone who saw her worth and wasn't afraid to put in the effort to keep her in their life. This story is a perfect example of what happens when someone doesn't fight for love. Emily's ex had the chance to stand by her side, to work through the challenges together, and to build something stronger on the other side. But he chose the easy way out. And when he realized his mistake, it was too late. Emily had already found someone who valued her enough to fight for her no matter what. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is underestimating the importance of effort. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. It's choosing to stay, even when things get messy. It's choosing to communicate, even when it's uncomfortable. It's choosing to fight for the relationship, even when it's easier to walk away. If your ex didn't fight for you, it's not because you weren't worth fighting for. It's because they didn't understand the value of what they had. And now that you're gone, they're starting to see that. Another aspect of not fighting for someone is the inability to handle conflict. Every relationship has its ups and downs, but it's how you handle those challenges that defines the strength of your bond. If your ex avoided conflict, shut down during arguments, or refused to address issues head-on, they might now be realizing how much that contributed to the breakup. Conflict isn't inherently bad. It's an opportunity to grow, to understand each other better, and to strengthen your connection. But when someone runs from conflict instead of facing it, they miss out on those opportunities, and when they look back, they might see how their avoidance created distance and resentment, ultimately leading to the end of the relationship. Here's another layer to this: fear of vulnerability. Fighting for someone requires vulnerability. It means opening yourself up, admitting your mistakes, and being willing to work through the hard stuff. But for some people, that level of vulnerability is terrifying. They'd rather walk away than risk getting hurt or looking weak. If your ex struggled to be vulnerable, they might now be realizing how much that cost them. They might see how their fear of being open and honest pushed you away, and they might regret not being brave enough to fight for what you had. Another mistake related to not fighting for someone is prioritizing convenience over commitment. Let's be honest, relationships aren't always convenient. They require time, energy, and effort. They require compromise and sacrifice. But when someone prioritizes convenience over commitment, they're not willing to put in that work. They want the benefits of a relationship without the responsibilities that come with it. If your ex chose convenience over commitment, they might now be realizing how shallow that mindset was. They might see how much they missed out on by not being willing to invest in the relationship, and they might regret not giving it their all. One final aspect of not fighting for someone is the inability to see the bigger picture. Relationships are a long-term investment. They're about building a life together, creating memories, and supporting each other through the highs and lows. But when someone gets caught up in the short-term challenges, they lose sight of the bigger picture. They focus on the immediate discomfort instead of the long-term rewards. If your ex didn't fight for you, it might be because they couldn't see past the temporary struggles. They might have been so focused on the difficulties of the moment that they forgot how much potential your relationship had. And now that you're gone, they're starting to see the bigger picture, and they're realizing how much they gave up. Here's the bottom line: if someone doesn't fight for you, they don't deserve you. Love isn't about perfection, it's about effort. It's about showing up even when it's hard. It's about choosing each other even when it's not easy. And if your ex couldn't do that, then they weren't the right person for you. When they realize their mistake, it's a powerful moment of clarity for them. But by then, you'll already be on your way to finding someone who knows your worth and is willing to fight for you every step of the way. Remember, you deserve someone who sees your value, who's willing to put in the effort, and who's ready to fight for the relationship, no matter what. You deserve someone who understands that love isn't just about the good times. It's about sticking together through the hard times too. And if your ex couldn't do that, then they've already shown you everything you need to know. Their loss is your gain, and your future is brighter because of it. And that's it for today's video. If your ex realizes the breakup was a mistake, remember this. It's not about going back, it's about moving forward. You deserve someone who sees your worth, fights for you, and loves you the way you deserve to be loved. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And hey, share it with someone who might need to hear this today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care of yourself, and remember, you're worth it.